Hello dear students, welcome back to a YouTube class. So in the previous class we started to study about the new topic in your overview of the computer, that is generation of the computer. The point you have to study in detail these generations of the computer because one compulsory questions you will get it for your final theory exam. So, based on the evolution of your computer, how the technology has been changed, like that, the era of the computer invention has been changed. So, totally, we have 5 generations of the computer named in a same way, that is, first generation, second generation, third generation, fourth generation, and the fifth generation. So, depending upon your development of the technology, these generation has been classified. So, the first generation we had studied in detail, and even we had studied second generation in detail. So today we will be continuing with the next part, that is the third generation of computer, fourth generation of computer, and the fifth generation of your computer. So before moving to your third, fourth, and fifth, we'll have a little bit revision on your first generation and second generation of your computer. As I told, the first generation of the computer has started in the year 1940 and it was there till 1956. So the era of your first generation was between 1940 to till between 1956. Next, the second generation era was from 1956 to till 1963. Similarly, the third was 64 to 71, fourth was 71 to 80, and fifth was from 80 to till today. So the features what all we have in your first generation of computers are, the main technology we used in the first generation is vacuum tubes. As we were using the vacuum tubes in your first generation, the size of first generation was very large. The size of a first generation computer was very large. I told you that a big one single laboratory was required to just maintain only one computer of your first generation computer. Yeah, speed of these computers was very slow. The storage capacity is also very less. Here, in your first generation computer, we used machine language to communicate with this computer. When all you want to enter any input, it should be in the format of machine language, and the output back you will get in machine language only. And the input is sent through either the punched cards or the paper tapes, and the output is obtained through your printouts. These are all the main points you have to remember relating to your first generation computer. And I also told you that when you want to start your first generation computer, you have to start heating up your vacuum tubes. You have to start heating up of your vacuum tubes and you have to maintain this temperature. If the temperature is overheated, your vacuum tubes has overheated, then the system may stop working or it may work malfunctions. So the maintenance was very difficult of your first generation. Some of the examples of your first generations are ENIAC, UNIVAC, and EDSAC and EDVAC. These are the 4 computers which has been designed in the era of your first generation computer. So these are all the points you have to remember when explaining your first generation. If you compare this first generation computer with a big size, speed is very less and the storage capacity is also very less. So the invention started to increase the speed, to having the more storage capacity and to reduce your computer system. As the invention has happened, that is, rather than using your vacuum tubes, we started to use transistors. So the next era started from the year 1956, that is your second generation of the computer. So the second generation of the computer started in the year 1956 to 1963, where the transistors are used in place of your vacuum tubes. As the transistors has started to use in your second generation of the computers, the size has been reduced drastically. A one room was required to maintain the first generation of computer, where only 1/4 room was enough to maintain your second generation of the computer. So just imagine a big laboratory has been reduced to only 1/4 of the laboratory to maintain your second generation of the computer. So how much the size has been reduced? As the size has been reduced in your second generation, the speed has been increased, and we can able to rely on the second generation of the computer. It generates less heat and consumes less electricity if it compares with your first generation of the computer. And here in your second generation of the computers, we used punched cards to take the input data, and printouts were used to take the output. In your first generation computers, we used machine language to communicate with the computer. Here in your second generation, we started to study about assembly language, and we used assembly language rather than your machine language. Just timing, you remember, machine language means everything in the format of a binary number system. If you want to tell the computer start, add, addition, subtraction, multiplication, anything, any instructions you want to give it to computer, it should be in the format of your binary numbers or a hexadecimal number, that is the combination of your digits in the format of bits and bytes, that is your machine language. As it was very difficult to remember everything in the format of machine language, so the next invention in the language came, that is called as assembly language, where rather than using completely machine language, few English-like statements, not the statement, few English-like words we can use. Few English-like words we can use. Those words are called as mnemonics, and that language is called as assembly language. So in detail relating to these languages, we'll study in the third chapter when we study about your softwares. Okay, so just timing, you remember, machine language was very difficult to maintain and remember everything. So to overcome with that disadvantages and difficulties, we started to use the next language, that is called as assembly language, and in second generation we used this language. Next point you have to remember in your second generation is, here we used magnetic drums and magnetic core technology to store the data. And some of the examples of your second generation computers are IBM 1620, IBM 7094, CDC, that is Control Data Corporation 1604, 3600, and UNIVAC 1108. These are the second generation computers. As I told you, I had shown you the diagram also. So this is the second generation computer. Done? Even though the second generation computer size has been reduced and the language has been changed, the speed has been increased, the storage capacity has also increased, but even though it was not up to mark what we are using in today's generation. So again, scientists started inventing the new technologies, and they came with the new era of the computer, that is the third generation of the computer. That is the third generation of the computer. So what happens here in your third generation of the computer? It started in the era of 1964 to till 1971. Here, rather than transistor, we started to use integrated circuits. These are called as shortcuts ICs. IC means integrated circuits. So remember, in first generation which technology we used? Vacuum tubes. In second generation which technology we used? We used transistors. And in third generation what we are using? Here we are using IC. IC stands for integrated circuits. IC stands for integrated circuit. So transistors were made smaller in size and placed into one silicon chip, and that silicon chip itself is called as your integrated circuit. So one single chip, on a single chip, the hundred and thousands of the transistors can be fixed. One IC ದೊಳಗ ಒಂದು ಇಂಟಿಗ್ರೇಟೆಡ್ ಸರ್ಕ್ಯೂಟ್ ಚಿಪ್ ಏನು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಸಿಲಿಕಾನ್ ಚಿಪ್, ಅದರೊಳಗೆ ಮೋರ್ ದೆನ್ 1000 ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಿಸ್ಟರ್ನ ಒಂದುಗೂಡಿಸಿ ಅದರ ಮ್ಯಾಗ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. That is where the real invention started in your computer era, and in this generation we started using your input and output devices like keyboards and monitors rather than punched cards and printouts. ಏನಾಗತ್ತಿತ್ತು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಜನ್ರೇಷನ್ ಮತ್ತು ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಜನ್ರೇಷನ್ದೊಳಗೆ ವಾಕ್ಯೂಮ್ ಟ್ಯೂಬ್ಸ್ ಮತ್ತು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಿಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡತ್ತಿದ್ವು. ಅವು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಸೈಜ್ ಇಷ್ಟು ದೊಡ್ಡದಾಗತ್ತಿತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಬರೀ ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸರ್ಸ್ದ, ನಮಗೆ ಬೇರೆ ಇನ್ಪುಟ್ ಔಟ್ಪುಟ್ ಡಿವೈಸಸ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಪಾಸಿಬಲ್ ಆಗವಲ್ದಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಸೊ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ವಿ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟೆಡ್ ಯೂಸಿಂಗ್ ICs, ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಡ್ರಿ ನೀವು, ಥೌಸಂಡ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಬರೀ ಒಂದು ಸಣ್ಣ ಸಿಲಿಕಾನ್ ಚಿಪ್ದೊಳಗೆ ಹಾಕತ್ತಿರಂದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ದು ಡಿವೈಸ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಸಣ್ಣದಾತಂತೆ ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಡ್ರಿ ನೀವು. ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಕೀಪ್ ಯುವರ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಆನ್ ಟೇಬಲ್. ಈಗ ಹೆಂಗೆ ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಟೇಬಲ್ದೊಳಗೆ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಇಡಾತಿರಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದು ಮಾನಿಟರ, ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೊಸೆಸರ, ಒಂದು ಕೀಬೋರ್ಡ, ಒಂದು ಮೌಸ, ಆ ಥರ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಜಾಗದೊಳಗೆ ಇಡ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ 1/4, one big laboratory has been reduced to 1/4 of the room. 1/4 of the room came to only one table. So that much of the size has been reduced with the use of your ICs. So these ICs increase the speed of the processing and even the storage capacity. Okay, these computers were more reliable, smaller in size and faster if you compare with your first generation of the computer and the second generation of the computer. The maintenance cost was very low if you compare with your second generation and first generation of the computers, and it consumed less electricity than your previous generations. If you want, you can remember some of the examples for your third generation are the Honeywell 6000 series, IBM 360 series and PDP. PDP stands for Personal Data Processor, and IBM 370/168 computers. Then, so what happens here in your third generation of the computer? The third generation of the computer started in the year 1964. It was there till 1971. The technology we used in third generation of the computer is IC, which stands for integrated circuits, rather than using transistors. How these ICs are made? The transistors were made smaller in size, and we placed those all the transistors, the 100 and the thousands of the transistors, into one chip, that is the silicon chip, and that is called as your IC. So as the size has been reduced, we started to use the input output devices like keyboard and monitor rather than the punched cards and the printout. Speed has been increased, that is the processing speed, and the storage capacity has been increased. It consumes the less electricity. These are all the points you have to remember about your third generation of the computer. Next I'll show you the diagram of your third generation of the computer. Just see. The model is older, but the size has been reduced. Done? So this is your monitor to display the output. This is your keyboard to enter the input, and this is your processors. This is the processor. You can use it for the operation. There was no any mouse. We were not using the mouse in the third generation. Fine. Next we'll study about the fourth generation of your computer. So the fourth generation of the computer started in the year 1971, and it was there till 1980. It was there till 1980. In fourth generation of the computer, microprocessors were used in place of ICs. In third generation we used ICs. In second generation we used transistors. In first generation we used vacuum tubes, and in fifth generation what we use is microprocessor. Remember all the technology, you may get it for 1 mark. Many times the question has been asked, which technology used in first generation, which technology is used in third generation, like that. Okay, so remember, in fourth generation we used which technology is the microprocessor. The fourth generation of the computer is marked by the use of very large scale integrated circuits. Very large scale integrated circuit. So what is this very large scale integrated circuit means? On a single silicon chips, more than thousands of ICs are built. on a single silicon chip, more than thousands of the ICs are kept. Just remember, in one single IC, more than 1000 transistors are kept, and here in your 4th generation, on one single silicon chip, more than 1000 ICs are kept. More than 1000 ICs are kept. That capacity we call it as very large scale integrated circuits. So this made computers smaller in size and become more powerful. They could be linked to the form of the network. Means from this era we started using internet and all. From this era we started using the internet and all. Done? So here in this era of the computers, some extra computers has been developed. Those are called as mini computers and mainframe computers and the personal computers. The personal computers means the computers which all we are using in home and offices. Mini computers means your laptops and all. Done. And mainframe computers means the computers which are used in big companies and all. Done. So these all the computers were developed from the era of your 4th generations. The meaning and detail feature of this mini computer, mainframe computer and personal computer you will study in classification part. Okay. So just timing, remember these all the computers has been invented in your 4th generation of the computer. Done. So the 4th generation started in the year 1971. It was there till 1980. Here, rather than ICs, we start using microprocessors. In this generation of the computers, we used ICs, but of what? Very large scale ICs we used. So the capacity is on a single silicon chips, more than thousands of the ICs are mounted. Done? So this made computers smaller in size, more powerful, and with the invention of these we started using the network, that is the internet. And the new computers like mini computer, mainframe computer and your personal computers started using from this generation, that is from your 4th generation of the computers. Okay. So now we'll study the last generation of the computer, that is your, so this is your examples of the 4th generation computers. Done. The laptops, the smartphones, then these are your computers, that is the personal computers we can call this. So the microprocessor, these are the examples of your microprocessor. The microprocessor means the ALU CU has been not divided. In CPU we have two parts, one is ALU, another one is CU. So here in microprocessor we don't divide separately CU and ALU, we combine those both into only one single chip. That processor is called as microprocessor. Done? So this is the example of your 4th generation computer. Next we'll study about the last generation of your computer, that is the 5th generation of your computer. So the 5th generation of the computer started in 1980 and till today what all the computers we use all are called as your 5th generation computer. All are called as your 5th generation computer. So here in your 5th generation we used the concept called as artificial intelligence. We used the concept which is called as artificial intelligence. So in intelligence also we have two types. One is a normal intelligence, what we all the human being have, and another is artificial intelligence. We the human being have the thinking capacity. We the human being have the thinking capacity of our own. That is the normal thinking capacity what we got from our birth. But the computer don't have its own thinking capacity. It all has been instructed by the human. But to the computer we have to instruct it how to work and all. So the computer works on our intelligence, what we had given it. Okay, that intelligence is called as artificial intelligence. That intelligence is called as artificial intelligence. So what we do is we make the computers to think like the human being through the softwares and the coding, that is called as artificial intelligence. In this generations of the computer, we used VLSI and ULSI. Here VLSI means very large scale integration, that is ICs, and ULSI stands for ultra large scale ICs. So what is the difference between this ULSI and VLSI is, on a single IC, that is on a single silicon chip, lakhs together of the ICs are mounted. On a single silicon chips, lakhs, more than 1 lakh of the ICs are kept, and the size has been reduced. Because the size has been reduced, we started using the artificial intelligence and the new invention started. Okay, in these computers, more intelligent has been used, and these are faster if you compare with the previous generation, that is your fourth, third, second and the first generation computers. In this generation, we used the desktop computers, laptops, notebook computers, and the main big invention of this generation of the computer is robots. The main invention of this generation is robots. So your fifth generation computers will come close to bridge the gap between computing and thinking. Till your fourth generation, we had designed the computers for only computing, means to do the calculation or for performance or for performing the task told by the users. Next, thinking was not there. That thinking has been added from your fifth generation through the artificial intelligence. Done. So these all the invention has taken place in your generations, that is first generation, second generation, third generation and fourth and fifth generation. So I'll show you the diagram of your fifth generations. See, these all are the diagram of your fifth generation. Very tiny in size, design is very powerful, touch screen computers we can use. At a time, many people can operate on only one computer system, that all technology can be added. And not even the processing is there in your fifth generation computer. Thinking capacity is also there in your fifth generation of the computer. Done. And the lastly I'll cover is just one table I have where we can compare all the 5 generation in only one table. If you remember this table, you can explain your generation easily. Okay, so here I had added all the generation, that is first generation, second, third, fourth and fifth generation, which technology we used in each generation and what all the features we have in each generation. Okay, so in first generation we used vacuum tubes. The speed is very less, size is very big, large in size, and the storage capacity is very less. Coming to the second generation, transistors we used, faster if you compare with your first generation, more reliable than your first generation computer. Coming to the third generation of your computer, here we used is ICs, that is integrated circuits, smaller in size and faster. Maintenance cost is very less if you compare with your first and second generation of the computer. Next, the fourth generation of the computer, here we used is microprocessors and VLSI IC, very large scale ICs. Here, the computers become more powerful, reliable and efficient if you compare with the previous 3 generations of the computers. And the last one we have is fifth generation of the computer, where we used is artificial intelligence and ultra large scale ICs. It has become a bridge to overcome with the gap between your computing and thinking. The fastest computer are there in your fifth generation of the computer. Done. So remember this table for differentiating each computer, each generation. First generation, second generation, third generation, fourth generation and fifth generation. Done. So study in detail relating to your generation. If you have any doubts, let me know. I'll clarify all your doubts. So study in detail these generation, because one definite question you will get it from this generation. If you have any doubts, let me know. I'll clarify your doubts, and the other things we'll study in the next class. Thank you.